Kia ora, Craig Murray here from the NZ SME&E Festival podcast, delivered to you by DHL, connecting your business to the world. Today, again, we are very lucky. We're always very lucky. We've got Richard Liew, and he is the founder of Startup NZ and the creator and editor of NZ Entrepreneur magazine. This one is going to be fire. We are talking about business ideas and ideating that idea and the power of an idea and how powerful that idea is. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Richard into the stream. Kia ora, Richard.
Kia ora, Craig. G'day, mate. Good to be here.
How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Looking forward to a cool chat.
I'm pumped on this one because I am full of ideas, and I have a business coach who tells me to refine and pull back. So, I'm really fired up on this one. So, to start with, and how we start with all of our podcasts is a few quick fire questions. And the first question I always ask is, what was your first ever job? Your first ever job?
First ever job was night fill worker at the warehouse in Auckland, and I was in charge of the toy department while I was at university. And I got to go in to the warehouse when there's no customers around, stock up all the shelves and play with a bunch of toys. That was a first job. First career job, though, was actually as an accountant, believe it or not. So I did a finance degree and spent 3 years after that working in a chartered accounting firm in Auckland.
Whereabouts in New Zealand do you live?
So currently living in Wanaka, have been here for 6 years, but grew up, born in Wellington and grew up in Auckland, lived most of our lives in Auckland, but made the move with my wife and our youngest daughter a few years ago. Now the daughter's moved back and we're still here.
If you haven't been to Wanaka, I would say put that on the destinations to travel to, because it's a stunning location and it's epic sort of space for mountain and a whole lot of adventure sports, which is what I'm really into. So the next thing, it would be really cool if we could your professional origin story, your career from when it started as an accountant and to how you got into starting up Startup NZ and the NZ Entrepreneur magazine.
Yeah, so that's sort of like a 20-odd year story now, so I'll try and be sort of fairly concise. As I mentioned, went straight out of university like a lot of kids, not really having thought through really the implications of my decisions about what to study. I sort of feel like I fell into accounting by default. I sort of got to this point after a few years where I realized, I looked around me one day, I thought, man, everyone else here seems to be having a great old time, but I was bored as hell. How did I end up here, and what does the rest of my life look like? You know, I was only 21 or 22 at the time, I think. And I realized I'd sort of fallen into it by default. Nowhere had along the line I actually sat down and gone, gee, what I want to be when I grow up is an accountant. So sort of fell into that, you know, expected to go to university, get a degree in something, and that's sort of where I ended up. But it was really cool because it really did spur my interest in, you know, what I do now. The bit I loved about my job as an accountant was when I got to go out of the office and go and work with our clients. So sitting in with the small business owners or medium business owners, sitting in there with their accounts team and really just starting to see what business is all about. You know, them making sales, you know, delivering products and services, hopefully making customers happy, and you know, hopefully at the end of the financial year making some good rewards in terms of money. So yeah, that sort of got me thinking. I thought, well, I don't really know what I want to do, but I know I definitely don't want to be an accountant. And so I thought, right, well, what next? And I think like a lot of people, you know, that I've spoken to, I definitely felt a bit of like identity crisis. Like, okay, I've spent all this time studying to be this thing, and I've spent another 3 years on the job. And you know, so you go through all these sort of questions about if I leave now, I've wasted all this time, or you know, I'm not trained to do anything else. And really that whole narrative, which I think is quite prevalent amongst our young people. And when you actually think about it, how our system is set up from an education point of view, forcing kids to try and choose what they want to be, when they grow up, when they're 10 or 11, so that they can start to choose the subjects they need to study in college and then university and then so on and so forth. I mean, you really have no actual idea of what you might want to do. And in my desperation to get out of being an accountant, I started my first business. So I thought, right, I definitely do want to be in business. I want to, run businesses, live life on my own terms. And so after 6 months of applying for a whole bunch of jobs in sales, because I thought selling would be a good thing to learn, and being denied, rejected for them all, because I was an accountant. And so, of course, you don't hire accountants for sales jobs. I got so desperate that I created my own first business, and I packaged up a bunch of spreadsheets. So I used my accounting skills, and I noticed as an accountant that there was a certain number of clients we would see: small business owners, generally small retail owners, and real estate agents. And I noticed there was a problem, and that problem was that they would come into the accounting firm with these shoeboxes full of unorganized documents, receipts, just an absolute mess. And they would actually essentially have to pay for a young person, a young staff member like myself, to sit there for hours on end to sort all this basic data out. And, that would cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars just to do that. So I thought, right, if I can create a spreadsheet package to help them keep that in line a bit easier. This was the year 2000 at the time. So we still had floppy disks. I thought, right, well, if I can do that and then go and sell some, then, we'll see what happens. So I quit my job and started selling these spreadsheet packages from home. I just used the phone. I used the yellow pages, and I cold called business owners, small retail shops in Auckland, and real estate agents. And I would try and basically organize to go and do a demo of my spreadsheet package and try and sell it to them. So it was a real trial by fire. Learned how to sell, learned how to deal with potential customers and get interest, make presentations, all that kind of stuff. And I still remember to this very day my very first sale, which was to a woman who owned a baby clothing shop in Birkenhead in Auckland on the North Shore there. And I think I sold it for $250 or something. But it was a really cool feeling, and that feeling of having made something myself and then having someone else pay for it really started me, going, right, that's great. And that started my journey. I managed to do that for a year, selling these spreadsheet packages around Auckland, pay the rent, and that was about it. That got me enough sales experience to then actually go and get a proper sales job for a technology company. So I then spent 3 or 4 years selling various phone and internet services, point of sale and banking services. And as part of one of those jobs in 2002, I was actually seconded to one of the first startups that went into the Icehouse startup incubator program there in Parnell. And that was 2002, so I got to go in there, and that was my introduction to the startup community, at Auckland and I guess in New Zealand. Ever since, basically, I've been building various small businesses in a range of industries, so from human resources, training, software, as I mentioned, publishing, advertising, marketing, and essentially that's culminated in us starting NZ Entrepreneur magazine back in 2012, basically to set up a media platform specifically serving keen New Zealand entrepreneurs who are looking for insightful information, good articles, inspiring stories, and Kiwi content. So and that's what I've been doing ever since. So we have our 10-year anniversary or birthday next year. And behind that, we also run the Startup NZ Entrepreneurs Program, which we put in market about 18 months ago now. And that's basically a serve yourself online introduction to entrepreneurship program that you can do from the comfort of home anywhere in New Zealand. We've kept it fairly low cost, so it's accessible. And so far we've had about 1,000 or so New Zealanders go through that program and kick off their entrepreneurial journeys. So that's it in a nutshell.
Next question. What is your favorite brand and why?
Yeah, so I've never really been too into my things, material stuff, or whatnot. So I'd have to say, actually, favorite brand would be NZ Entrepreneur. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but I really love what we do, and basically my job, which is talking all day, every day to entrepreneurs, the people helping them around our startup ecosystem, and just helping tell their stories. So yeah, and as I said, 10 years old next year. So yeah, we've got some stuff going on.
10 years is a hell of a feat. So congratulations on that. How about you tell the audience a little bit about NZ Entrepreneur Magazine? Is it a physical magazine? Is it a digital magazine, or is it a combination of both? And what sort of content is in that magazine?
Yeah, cool. Well, the easiest thing to do is go check it out at nzentrepreneur.co.nz. It's online only magazine, so we are digital natives, if you like. It's actually the 4th or 5th online magazine that I've started. The others have sort of fallen by the wayside. Obviously, everything we do now is just around NZ Entrepreneur, which is where my heart is. Yeah, so web only, you can subscribe, get our email updates. As I said before, if you're a Kiwi out there with an idea to start a business, or you want to learn a bit more about what's involved in entrepreneurship, then we've built it for you. So yeah, whether it's ideas and information on how to action your business ideas, getting started, raising money, understanding all the different awesome organizations that can help you around New Zealand. That's a big part of what we do. And as I said, helping to share and celebrate the stories of just so many awesome Kiwi entrepreneurs doing amazing stuff, from which, as founders, we can always learn something when we hear other business owners talking about their journey. So we really look to work hard and extract those nuggets of advice for our readers.
So today we're going to focus on ideation, power of an idea, and processes. So for those people who haven't maybe heard the term ideation before, can you explain sort of what that is?
Yeah, so it's I don't know, when I first heard it, I thought it was a made-up word, ideation. What is it? Well, it's just coming up with ideas. I guess in our context, specifically, we're talking about coming up with business ideas, enterprise ideas, social enterprise ideas. And it's really just the process that you sort of go through whenever you need to sit down, I guess, and, you're wanting to start something new. There's a problem you want to solve. And so, I guess it's a trendy way of saying, let's sit down and use our brains and try and figure out what we can do to add value to the world.
So moving on into ideation, I've got, let's just say, for the purpose of this podcast, I've got a business idea, and that idea is to sell, I'm just looking around the room right now, native pot plants to people all around New Zealand. No idea how I'm going to do that, but this is my idea. No one's doing it currently that I'm aware of. What are some of the steps you think that we need to do? There probably is a lot of people doing that, but nurseries being one. But what is a good idea to start with to understand whether or not there is actually a market in my idea?
Yeah, so you've sort of already touched on that, Craig, in that the underlying success of at the very base level of any enterprise is based on the value we are creating for the market, right? So really, we've got to ask ourselves very carefully, the idea that I've come up with, okay, I might think it's an awesome idea, right? And I might talk to my mum And she says, yeah, you should go do that, Richard. That's an awesome idea. And I talked to a bunch of friends and they all agree. So we've got to be very careful that we don't just keep ourselves in our own little filter bubble of people who love us and like us and don't want to hurt our feelings. So the first thing we need to do whenever we've got an idea is to really take some time first and do a bit of what we would call market validation. And really that's taking some time to, number one, if you think you've got this business opportunity that is worth, you're potentially considering investing your time, effort, or money into. Firstly, what else is already available, for people in the marketplace. So, in your case, for example, you would go and start with some basic research online and go and check out, hey, is there anyone else currently in my desired market or target market serving this particular product or service or segment of the market? Because you may well find out that actually, there's already people doing what you've planned on doing. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't go ahead at all, but it is to say you do need to be aware of what is currently already available to people. So, and amazingly, like seriously, the number of times I still, come across people who have just come up with some sort of idea and then gone ahead and started plowing all their time, effort, and money into it without actually taking time to really thoroughly research what else is already serving that need. Is still quite amazing. So that would be the first step. Check it out. Who else is already doing what you're planning on doing? The second part of that, though, is so let's say you've found out, actually, look, there's no one else doing what I'm doing, or there are people doing what I'm doing, but maybe they're serving a slightly different part of the market, and you think there's room for a competitor. Cool. All right. Next part is to go and really investigate the potential customers. All right. So, what you want to know is, all right, how much is currently being spent on this particular sector, if you like? Are there potentially millions of customers in this, for this product or service? Or is it just thousands? Or is it maybe even only hundreds? What are they currently collectively sort of spending? What's the average spend, per customer, per year, or per purchase? So you're really starting to get a bit of a feel for what is the potential opportunity if I am to pursue this idea from the financial side. Because you may have identified a problem or a need that you think needs filling. That's fine. Maybe the world really does need it. But if there's only potentially 5 or 6, or a dozen, or, a couple of hundred people that may be in the market for what you're wanting to offer, and that the value of what you're offering is not sufficient to really generate a meaningful business, then, you may want to think again or look for another opportunity. Now, again, it's not to say it shouldn't be done. A lot of times people will go and do things just because they really feel passionate about solving that particular problem, or they're really passionate about this particular product. But just be aware that you're going to put a lot of time, effort, and money into this. Your life force. So you sort of ideally, you want to know that if you're going to dedicate yourself to something, that there's going to be a big enough market for it to be sustainable financially, for you to be rewarded financially, so that you can keep doing it. You can keep solving this problem and do more of it. So that's sort of the next part. So just scoping that addressable market. And the next part would be going and actually talking to your potential customers. All right. So especially important if you're entering a brand new market. Like, let's say you've got technology never been used before, but you believe that there's a need for it. So that's cool. Again, we've got to be mindful that we may believe that, we're absolutely onto something. We may be super excited about the idea, and it's exciting when you come up with an idea. It's like, whoa, but we're just got to get ourselves out of that filter bubble. So that next part, as I said, go and talk to as many potential customers as you can before you decide to launch this product. All right. So some startup experts would say, and it's not just going and talking to 3 or 4, like the more the better. Ideally, if you can spend 3 months talking to 100 customers, now you're in a good position to know what you need to do, whether or not people are actually interested in what you're planning on bringing to market, how much they'd be prepared to pay for it, what are the features they're really looking for, and are those features the same features that you believed that were going to be the ones that they're going to pay for. So we're really trying to stress test our beliefs. When we come up with a business idea, lean startup methodology teaches us that actually all we have at that stage is a bunch of hypotheses, right? We believe that there are a bunch of people out there that exist who have this particular problem that would want to buy this solution and would be prepared to spend this much money. So these are all just assumptions, and we need to really do due diligence by going and testing those assumptions, right? And the best way to do that is go and talk to those potential customers. So if it sounds like a lot of work, it is, right? But just be mindful that it is way better to do this work early now, before you have quit your job, sold the house, raised $100,000 to do a prototype, and then hired a marketing person and planned your launch date. That is a very risky way of launching a new business, right? Now, it can be done. It has been done. Actually, it's the way most people do start businesses. We have an idea. We get really excited about it. We decide to put everything into it, and then we launch and we see what happens, right? Smart lean startup methodology eliminates that risk as much as we can. We go and do the due diligence before we go and invest all of our time, effort, and money. And that enables us also at the same time, while you're doing this market validation process and interviewing potential customers, what you're actually doing is not just getting feedback about what people want, but that you're actually also building your first potential customer base, right? Because when you're talking to the customers, you're building relationships, you're finding out about their problems, their concerns, their challenges, and they are good chance that when you do finally go ahead and launch, you've already got a list of potentially 100 customers to go talk to. So it's a really 2-for-1 sort of situation in there.
So you've spoken a lot about the sort of practical steps you can take to ideate your business idea, but what about the personal traits? So what are some of the things you need to start to be aware of, like self-awareness, and when you're starting to realize that this idea may not be an idea, and you've just sunk 600 hours of time into that? It's emotionally, it's quite hard. I've done an event and it completely bombed, and it took me a while to get over it. And then after a while, you sort of figure out, oh, well, actually, I learned quite a lot from that, things that I'm not going to do again. But when you go into it, what's your mental state? Like, what do you need? What do you think some of those traits or things you need to develop interpersonally to make it not so much of a burden on your lifestyle?
Yeah, so I think, and this is getting to the crux of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I think first of all, if you've actually taken steps towards starting a business, like you've made a decision, I'm going to give this a go. First of all, congratulations, right? You're on your way, because the reality is that most people who have business ideas, or a project or some sort of cause they want to go and take action on, actually don't ever take that first step. They never get started. They never make the decision. They keep putting it off. They talk themselves out of it. And so that generally, in my experience, is basically comes down to our belief system. And a belief system, for entrepreneurs is super important, because it underpins what we call the entrepreneurial mindset. All right. So if, for a start, I'll use an example, my own example. Back when I was an accountant, desperate to get out of being an accountant, but totally unqualified to do anything else, and I thought, hey, maybe I should start a business. Immediately, there was just all these beliefs that popped up, which stopped me. Things like, I'm too young to be taken seriously. If it was such a good idea, someone else would already be doing it, right? I've got no business experience, therefore I can't start a business. you know, I mean, how ridiculous is that, right? So, but you may be able to relate to some of these things. So I'd say the first thing, if you really want to be out there building businesses, being a successful entrepreneur, you can start the work right now. You know, the mahi starts the moment you decide, and that can be done from home for basically for free. And basically what it means is really starting to go to work on your mindset, uncovering what limiting subconscious beliefs you may have that would stop you starting. You know, for example, if a young person is brought up with the belief that hey, entrepreneurs are basically just greedy, money hungry, you know, capitalists, right? Then you've got to ask yourself, what chance does that particular young person have in terms of going out and starting their own awesome business to bring joy to the world? Probably not a great chance, right? Unless they, first of all, understand they've somehow picked up this limiting belief around what it means to be an entrepreneur and all the negative associations with it. And then two, then doing the work to replace that belief with something that actually serves. A lot of it comes down to your belief and your ability to do it. You know, you may have an idea or a product that you want to bring to the world, but of course, you know, until you've done this the first time, you have no experience. You've got no frame of reference. You've got no successes to look back on. So, you know, getting ourselves into that state where we actually are confident enough to even just have a try, that's your first work. That's the first part. As you go on though, and this is the good news, right? Entrepreneurship, like anything else in life, really actually can be learned. A lot of people would say, oh, you know, I wish I could start a business, but I'm just not entrepreneurial. Or, oh, that person, yeah, Craig Murray, man, yeah, he's just a natural born entrepreneur. He's crazy. I'm not like him, you know. You know, getting past all of that stuff is really, really important. And you do have to be a little bit crazy, right? That certainly helps.
You've got to have
crazy in a good way.
No, I feel like you need to have self-belief, confidence, motivation, and you're intrinsically motivated. I also feel that you need to understand where you want to end up as well. So some people, like I originally wanted to say, oh, I want to have 50 staff. I want to create this massive multi-million-dollar business. And then the more and more I thought about that, I was like, man, that just sounds like an absolute headache. I don't want to do that at all. I just want to be able to create a lifestyle. I want to go surfing. I want to go mountain biking. I want to go fishing. I want to hang out with my kids and my family and have time to do that. So what can I make? What do I need to do to make that a success? 30 staff is not the way for me anyway.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's, you know, super great point. Like entrepreneurship is not a one size fits all thing. The beauty of it is, you know, I look at it as figuring out how to make a living, maybe even a fortune, all right, if that's what you're interested in, doing something you love that makes the world a better place in some way, you know, and utilizing our own unique gifts, skills, you know, our preferences, and figuring out how to get them all in alignment. And to be honest, it doesn't, you know, it often doesn't just happen the first time you go and try and start a business. It takes learning through doing, you know, repetition. Try one thing, see what happens. You're going to, you know, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But you're going to learn. You're going to learn business lessons. You're going to learn whether or not that direction is sort of, you know, the way you want to go. I can relate to what you're saying, Craig. You know, when I first started out, I had massive visions of global domination. And as I've gotten a bit older and had, you know, I think I've started 5 or 6 businesses now. But through each cycle, you learn a lot and a lot more about yourself. What really matters? Why am I doing this? And the clearer that understanding about your underlying motives and what that end picture looks like for you, the better, right? Because you know, ultimately, if you stay with that, you will get there in the end, right? It may not be pretty, it may not be easy, but hey, man, you're living, right? You're living on purpose. You're making proactive choices about what you want to contribute to the world and what you want to experience. So, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I also feel that once you understand where you want to be, it's quite powerful as well. And also starting a business or being an entrepreneur, you're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of sideswipe challenges come your way. You don't need to be prepared, but it's going to happen. Like I can't think of anyone that's just gone straight from 0 to 100 without having to go backwards to 2, then move up to 10, and then backwards, and then move up to 40. It's not a linear process. It's a learning process, and there's some humility. You need to be empathetic to other people as well, because especially in the situation we're in now,
So
yeah.
yeah, Rod Drury, founder of Xero, I guess one of our startup golden children here in New Zealand over the last sort of couple of decades. He's said a few years ago at an event, and I always remember, he said, entrepreneurship is a series of baby steps. Right? This is what people often don't understand. If you're watching mainstream business media, entrepreneur stories, quite often it seems like these super successful business people and entrepreneurs have just come out of nowhere. But most of the time that is not the case. Most of the time when you look into their backstory, you realize that they've been doing this for time and time again. They've had small success stories or failures along the way, and they just go step by step by step. And as I said, because entrepreneurship is principle based, there's not really, every time you go through the process of creating a product, a service, or a business, taking it to market, trying to build a business, you're learning. And eventually, like I promise you, it actually does start to get easier. So that's the good news. The not so good news is that it can take a long time, right? So you want to start your learning as early as possible, which is why I always say, the perfect time to start your first business is now, right? You've got to get started. The longer you put it off, the longer you're going to delay the learning process and any inevitable success. And coming back to the point you asked about before, preparing ourselves mentally for when things don't go right. So one of the things that happens when we, as founders, we have an idea. Number one, we get super excited about it, usually, and that's a good sign. But we can often get really attached to it, right? Personally, like, oh man, okay, cool. I'm going to put all this time, effort, and money into it, right? What does that say about me? Well, first of all, I've got to get over, any negative beliefs in my head. Comments from other people about why are you chasing this crazy idea? Why are you leaving that safe, secure job? Why are you throwing away all those years of education to do this thing in this industry you've never had to go at? So you've got to get over that. But just being mindful that as entrepreneurs, we are not our ideas, right? We are not our business. And you really got to get to grips with this. Absolutely, when you do something, you're putting your name on the line. You feel like your whole identity is going with it, your integrity. And it can feel like your idea is a representative of your value as a human. But I would advise, really being mindful of that, and if you like, losing a bit of attachment to your individual ideas, because you may come up with widget A in order to try and solve a certain problem, but if you are so invested that and intent that widget A is the only answer to solving that problem and the only product or solution that you must build, and it doesn't work, you're really setting yourself up for some pain. If you can step back a bit and say, look, I want to solve this problem. At the moment, I'm working on theory, theory A with widget A. If it's not widget A, that's cool. I'm going to, tweak it a bit, and I'm going to go with widget B or widget C, or business 1, 2, 3, or more, and keep coming back. And it again takes a lot of practice. It's an emotional ride, a mental ride. But when you have been in the game long enough and been through enough things and realize that, man, you're still standing, you're still going, and if that flame that you're heading towards is still burning, it's there, then pick yourself up again and come back, and you'll come back better. It's 9 times out of 10.
What are some of the common mistakes a new business owner or someone with an idea makes?
Again, I would suggest, it's this whole, I'm going to launch my business and see what happens approach, right? Now it's fine. As I said, most businesses are actually launched that way. Someone comes up with a thing and they just say, this is going to be a hit, and they go and build it and they take it to the market and they get some success, and that's fine. But often what also happens is you build it, you take it to the market, and then you find out, no one wants it, or not the way I thought it should be, right? So do your due diligence, learn about market validation, and do what you can to minimize those risks. You cannot eliminate all the risk. At some stage, you are still going to have to go ahead and make a decision to press ahead without complete information. You're never going to know 100% that this is going to be a hit, right? But you can do your work to try and increase those chances that it's going to be successful. The other big mistake I see a lot is founders not understanding that as an entrepreneur, our real product is not the product that we are building, right? My product that I need to worry about is not my widget, right? Yeah, I need to get that right, or yes, it's important, but it's not the end product, right? The end product that we need to be mindful of building as entrepreneurs is the business model that enables us to profitably and reliably deliver the widget to the market in a sustainable way, right? So there's a big difference, and I see it a lot. You get so caught up in the big idea, and you go to work and you start putting all your time and attention into figuring out what the widget's going to look like, and you choose the colors and the materials and the branding and the logo and all that kind of stuff, and that's cool. It's important. You've got to get the widget right. But as I said, it's only really the first step. Your job as the entrepreneur is to build the business model that goes around it, right? Because having an idea is one thing, it's like they say, ideas are like a dime a dozen. Everyone's got ideas, but there's a big difference between a good idea and a successful working business. And that comes down to your understanding about building business models and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's another, probably the most common one actually. And if you want to learn more about this, what I'm talking about, go read the E-Myth by a guy called Michael Gerber. It's E-myth. It's E standing for the entrepreneurial myth. It's quite an old book, maybe 30 or 40 years old. Yeah, but it's absolutely it's a must read for anyone looking to start a business. And this is where you start to get into the difference between entrepreneurship and self-employment. Self-employment absolutely is a very valid form of entrepreneurship. You've got to create something, you've got to bring value to the market, you've got to go sell it, you've got to get customers. But there's, you've got to ask yourself, am I wanting to build a job for myself, or am I wanting to build a successful business? And a successful business, by definition, is one that we as the founders can eventually, hopefully, walk away from. You can go on holiday for 3 months and come back and the business is running exactly as it was, if not better, without you. All right. And if you can't do that, then currently you've built yourself a job, and maybe a job within your business, but the job is not yet done. If being able to walk away or exit is something you ever want to do.
That's really good advice, that one. We're coming towards the end of the podcast, and I've got a couple other questions I do really want to ask. Is one, if you could say one or two words, literally one or two words, why do you think people are hesitant to execute on their idea?
Fear. That's one. And not knowing. By not knowing, I sort of mean partly fear, but also just not having the knowledge around business startup processes or what's involved. It can just be absolutely overwhelming, right? You decide, all right, I'm going to start this business. Now, if you've never done it before, man, you're going to learn very quickly about all the things you don't know about, right? And that's fine. It's part of the process. You got to embrace it. But yeah, if I had to, I'd say fear and not knowing would be my picks there.
That leads really well into my next question. I've got a lot of weaknesses in my business game. What would you suggest someone do if they know, or they've got enough self-awareness that they've got weaknesses in their business game? What should they do?
So yeah, one of the first things, as I just said, you decide you want to start a business, and the first thing you realize is just how much you don't know. And this is where it can be a real shock, right, for employees trying to transition to business owners. Because if you think about it, as an employee, right, you're working in an organization for someone else. Generally what happens is we get to specialize, right? So I might be the marketing person, or the HR person, or the warehouse guy, or the, whatever it might be. And in the employee world, the more you specialize, the more knowledge you create and accumulate, and skill you accumulate in that one very thing, so that you become absolutely awesome. In the employee world, your value goes up the more we specialize. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, especially in the early days, when it's probably just you and maybe a co-founder, if you're lucky, or two, first thing you realize is, okay, I've now got to do all the other bits that go into building a successful business, right? And it can just be like, oh my goodness, you didn't even know what you needed to know at that stage. So I'd just say, look, if you're choosing the entrepreneurial path, understand that a big part of it is your ability to learn, to assimilate information very quickly, to get it to be, you need to be a bit of a generalist, because at the start there is going to be no one else. But as you get more and more experience over time, you will pick up the things that you need to know. And I promise you, it does get easier. But, absolutely, part of the successful entrepreneurial mindset is your attitude towards learning, and self-development. So embrace that. If you are happy to, always be learning, and not feeling like you need to know everything all the time, you're curious and you're happy to reach out, put your hand up, look for the knowledge, you'll get it. It may take some time, but that'll stand you in good stead for the journey ahead.
So my last question, and you sort of already answered, we'll go again. If you could offer one piece of advice for a person who's got an idea, what would that be?
Okay. Number one, start your journey on learning about business models. And to cut it short, I'd say go look up the Lean Canvas. Okay, it's LEANCANVAS. It's a tool sort of used widely, and especially in the tech startup world, to help you basically transition from just having an idea in your head for a product to start to capture your business model and the 9 key components of any successful business on one page. So I'd say go look up Lean Canvas. Come and check out Startup NZ, our course. You can take the first 3 lessons for free, and or reach out, have a look online and see, reach out to your local innovation hub. Most areas have some sort of team dedicated to helping local entrepreneurs get their ideas up and running. So yeah, look for the help there. It is out there, but start that learning journey now.
Richard, thank you so much for your time. This has been an amazing podcast. It's one that I was really looking forward to chatting to you about, because it's a big part of my DNA. A couple of things that you may not know already is that if we do also host a New Zealand small business or small medium enterprise and entrepreneur festival, one's in Wellington. If you do come to that, even whether it's virtually or physically as in person, you'll get an automatic subscription or Startup NZ, which is going to help you on your business journey, which is so cool. And Richard, I want to really thank you for that. We'll link it down in the show notes as well, where to go to have a look at that Startup NZ and the NZ Entrepreneur magazine. So I do suggest that you subscribe to that, because the content that they put out is is high level, and it really does help your business move forward. So Richard, from me to you, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Kia ora, Craig, and best wishes for the rest of the year, and keep up the great work.
Awesome. We will try to. Thank you.